start this meeting, 4:30 p.m., International Falls Economic Development Authority, Monday, December 6, 2021. Everybody's here except for Leon Deach. I don't know if he's on. No? Okay. So we have 4 out of the 5 counselors here for voting. And we have a few in the audience here. Next step is new business. And number 1 on that is consider developers agreement with Green Tech Manufacturing Incorporated for a sewer line relocation project. And I was hoping, I don't know if we got the owners on.
We've got Len Peterson from the county online, as well as Randy Toms from B93 and someone under an Acer laptop, but I don't know who it is.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's the owner.
So I'm sure they knew about the meeting and stuff.
Absolutely.
They have presented, you know, about their business and everything, but what we're going to talk about, I guess I can talk, or Betty can talk, or we both can talk. You want me to start, Betty?
Sure.
Okay. So Betty and I went to Green Tech, sat down with the 2 owners, got in discussion on expansion, and part of that expansion was to move the sewer and water because it's right in the way of where they would expand with their new building. And so we had good discussion. What came out of that we felt, we let them know that we'd like them to stay in International Falls. They do have a chance to go elsewhere. There's a city on the range that would love to have them there. And so we've got that kind of sitting off to the side, and I don't want to see this business leave. So we talked about it, the importance they've got. Betty can maybe, if I'm off a little bit, but about 60, 70 employees working there. With this expansion, they will probably go over, won't take long, they'll go over 100 people probably. So it's a win-win for, as far as I'm concerned, for International Falls. You get more employees. They're buying more stuff in International Falls. They're going to restaurants. They're going to the grocery store, whatever. So it's a big deal. The owners were born and raised here. Brian Horn, Cody Homestead. They wanted to continue to live here, but they also know that if it doesn't work out here, that if somebody else is offering them something even sweeter or whatever, they could pack up and go. So I want to let people know that economic development is one of the things that I really, and I'm glad Harley allowed me to chair it or be president, because it's something that I've been watching International Falls. I came here in 1975. I've heard about all the different companies that wanted to come here. That it didn't happen, and for whatever reason, there's no reason to discuss it, but a lot of them didn't come here, so they had an opportunity, or they wanted to come here. So I'd like to see, Betty and I took a tour of the building. Very impressed with that, but they're running out of room. Employees, their elbows are hitting or whatever, there's just not enough room. And we watched the process, Betty and I did. Everything from robotics to, you know, cutting the metal, everything. And they are producing 11 fancy wood stoves every day, completed, shipping them out of here, ready to go. They're ranked in the top 3, I believe, in the country as far as wood stove manufacturing. They want to increase the size, not only for room for the employees, but they have material that's sitting outside, out in the cold. In this big building that they want to build, to allow them to bring some of their stuff in that they use to make the wood stoves, get it out of the weather and get it inside. Plus more room and adding more employees. So I was really impressed with the attitude that they'd like to stay here. They really would. But when we left there, we basically had, I think it's okay to say it, we had kind of a verbal agreement that they would look at it, what we come up with here tonight, and then they'd make a decision on what they're going to do. So I guess I can turn it over to Betty now. Betty might have found something or I didn't speak enough about something, but we both were impressed with the company, right?
Yeah. Commissioner Chairman Holden and EDA staff, commissioners, we had a great meeting with them. They expressed to us, their desire to stay in the community. However, they did also tell us that they had already purchased a building and employed 6 people in a different community. So that was a little concerning to me. However, you can see in the attached documentation behind your packet here that, as we discussed in our previous EDA meeting, it was kind of tossed out there, a couple different options. And we did speak to them, about this option, about the deed grant has to be between the International Falls EDA and the city and the state deed. That's the 2 parties within the deed grant. That's a 50-50 match. So then we are looking at the EDA is looking to say, okay, green tech manufacturing, what are you willing to, we know you're going to expand. We know you're going to, add employees and, grow within our community. And that is awesome. But what upfront are you willing to do to begin with to, secure and, tell us that, yes, you're invested and you're going to move forward with that improvement. And so that's why I laid out what I did here is asking them to come up with the 25% of the EDA's half to support that effort. And as you can see, Mr. Horn's response to that, and I believe it's in the 4th paragraph, where he says, you have to make a decision quickly about where you stand on this. And if it's not moving the city sewer at 100% your cost, they have to make a decision about where their expansion is going to take place. So that is what's before you as an EDA today on how you choose to, what that developer's agreement looks like. And then, because the grant would be, and it's all contingent upon the application being approved. I mean, we've already done the prelim and it looks pretty good. However, we'll see what you guys choose as how you feel that agreement needs to be between the IFEDA and Green Tech.
Okay, anybody wanna, from the council here, wanna have discussion on this? Hartley?
Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of thoughts on this, and I've been really weighing this because I think everyone here on the EDA agrees that we want to support our local businesses, and this is a fantastic option that we have to help a business grow and expand. At Public Works this last week, I had an opportunity to talk to our Public Works Director along with Commissioner Holden or Commissioner Buller about if there's any advantage to us moving that line in the event that Green Tech was not to move forward on this process. So we moved the line. What advantages do we have? On the upside, the Public Works Director had said that it gives us access to that line, which is currently underneath the building, which is an advantage. But besides that, there's no real true advantage to the city to pay 100% or 50% of this project. He also did state, though, that all of our sewer lines in International Falls are shot. So, I mean, if we're going to move one, this might be the one to do. So that's an advantage to us. I have some major concerns with the idea that it's us or another area. I think that the city is doing a huge justice to the commitment of International Falls by asking them to put a quarter of the money up front and we would pay that back after completion. That would ultimately have no cost to the company. I think that that's a good way to do it. That way, in the event that they don't move forward and it isn't $100,000, and I know that that's not the correct number, but $80,000 to $100,000 out from the city to do a project that we hadn't planned on. And I don't know how much their project expansion is going to be, because obviously the cost of the assessment on their building right now brings in a certain amount of tax revenue. And if they were to grow that, you know, it would be an advantage for the city as well, because it would be additional growth in tax value. So I've thought about all of these things over the last week or so since I knew we were having this meeting. And I guess I'm kind of disheartened that nobody from Green Tech has shown up. And I do see that we have the KEDA director is in the audience, and maybe he has something to bring forward.
I think that would be great to have Paul talk. I think he's seen a lot over the time, and I think he knows how important this is. So could you come up, Paul? And
just one correction on your.
Yeah.
You mentioned that line goes under the building now. It would go under the new addition.
Okay.
It's not under the building now.
Okay.
That's just if they don't build that addition, that line could just stay.
yeah,
Okay.
that line would
Fair enough. I guess misunderstood.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. And just to clarify a few things, total estimated cost of the line removal is 200,000. Is it?
I've heard 180 to 190 is
Okay.
what I've heard as an estimate. That's what I'm getting as an estimate right now.
And I don't know the geometry where it would move, but it would be necessary for them to complete the expansion.
Right.
And I had a chance to tour Green Tech within the last 2 weeks and look at their growth and look at the new robotic welder that they've got. You know, I've been at this a long time, and economic development is tricky at best. Oftentimes, and it's difficult when you're pitted one community against another. But one of the things I like about it, and I think there's consensus on with the group here, is that these guys check all the boxes. They're homegrown. We know what we're dealing with. It's manufacturing. They're paying good wages and benefits. They've had to increase that, and they're bringing people back to the community. Boy, that's tough. And I don't know how many other deals the EDA has been involved with, but and I understand there's always risk, and I appreciate the creativity about if you hit your job goals and get the completion of the building, we'll reimburse the money. I think that's a reasonable way to look at this. But in the end, if they're if they want to put their money into the expansion of the building, I think you got to look at all these individually. And of course, this where you're at right now, I think look at it as an investment into our future in the community. It's going to send a really strong message. And I know it's tricky when resources are difficult and trying to use a deed grant, which again, I think we just don't have the resources. So we've got to play this kind of approach to it. So I understand all that in the big scheme of things. But again, I don't know how many businesses that we see in the manufacturing sector in International Falls that are growing. And one of the things I liked when I toured there was the ages of a lot of the people. There were young people there, meaning they're going to stick around for a long time, raise families. I think the kind of wages and benefits they're providing is enough, to raise a family here. I mean, we all talk about economic development. We all talk about tax base. We all talk about diversifying the economy. And it's hard to come by. I mean, again, I've been at this a long time and we just haven't had a lot of success. So I think this is the best economic development story. And I think, again, there's probably consensus on that. It's a great story. So it's how do you get there? And I think in total, we're talking $50,000. I don't know how to put that in some sort of context where, you know, what's the cost of not doing this versus the cost of letting somebody go elsewhere and grow elsewhere. And the problem is that other community has a big, you know, IRRB sitting there, probably, you know, with the power that they bring. So I understand the challenges of this kinds of decision based on all this, but we've got some really good momentum going on in the community right now, and growing that tax base, and now another dilemma if they create 10 additional jobs is housing, and again we're working on housing. All of these things are coming together at this time. So I'm sorry for going on a little bit because I'm trying to, you know, do this. So again, I think I have to look at it. I was laying awake last night thinking about this. What's the cost of not doing this? And there is some risk, but given the history of this company and where they're at, I think it's a pretty good risk at this point in time. They're adding jobs not because they're trying to fulfill some sort of application or meet some tax abatement agreement. It's because they have to, because they're growing. And like I said, one of 4 companies in the U.S. that has that EPA certification. They're selling overseas now too, which is unreal. They're selling across the country. So I apologize again for going on about this, but I just think you have to look at it in terms of the big picture and say it's probably the best interest of the community to support them in any way you can and help them get there. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Nice job, Paul. Well said. Appreciate it. So go ahead.
I'm going to change my tune here. Is there a way to create a developer's agreement? I mean, I think we're all aware of how much money sits in the EDA fund. We're all aware that the last major project we did with the EDA money is we bought a fire truck. Is there a way to write a developer's agreement that says we'll pay for this if you do this expansion in X amount of years, but if not, you're going to pay us back? I mean, my fear is that we do this, we spend this money, and then they turn around and they relocate to that building that they bought. And that, do we mention the city that they're in? I mean, we all know what city it is. My fear is that they move to that city where they've already got employees. I mean, that it's pretty. This is a threat. I'm sorry, it is. So, that's my only fear, is that I would love to spend the money on this and keep this business in town, but my fear is that we drop let's round it up. We drop $100,000 on this, and then they decide that the IRRB sweetens the pot, and they get a sweeter deal in the other city after we do this work, and they decide to pack up and leave, and we've got a moved sewer and another empty building.
Well, Joe, I sat there with the 2 owners, and I know that I can say from my own heart that they want to stay here. They don't want to move from International Falls elsewhere.
Is this the last ask? Or is there going to be is there going to be tax abatement on the new bill? Right, but you know what I mean? Is this the ask? Is this?
Yes, well,
Is the deed grant, I mean, do it qualify for a deed grant without their participation?
Yes.
Yes, it is,
Yes.
because the D grant is strictly between the EDA and the city, or excuse me, the state.
But I mean, honestly, that's my fear, is that we spend that and I don't want to call it a waste, but I mean, to spend, we'll round it, $100,000 of economic development authority money to move a sewer that there's no guarantee that it's going to create a single job, scares the daylights out of me. That's a third of the budget.
well, here's what I would say, after spending time with them, I believe that they are going to expand, and I believe they're going to add employees, and I believe they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's my belief.
But
And
is it
I'm
pretty big?
excited. I'm so excited. We got 2-3 people that grew up here. Andrew Eldine is an engineer for him now. Ryan and Cody Homestead, the owners. They want it to stay here. I can tell you that right now.
Mr. Chair,
And-
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
If I could, and that is the question here. I mean, and I would respond to it this way. Look at their history, look what they've invested in their current site. And they're, in the robotics piece, they keep adding additional assets there and trained employees. I think it's in their best interest to stay where they're at, even though the cost of doing business might be a little cheaper there just because they can probably get more employees easier and get shipping a little bit closer and all that. But they have not asked for anything up to this point as well. And that's another good signal. They have gone through this growth on their own. And they've had some growing issues early on and before the two current owners took over. They went through some growing pains, but I think they're at a point now where they've got this inertia going where they have to make these decisions. Look at it as a threat or look at it as a business decision. But yeah, the tone may be a little strong, but again, you have to look historically what they've done and where they're at now. And I just would add that.
Mr. Chairman?
I just have two more quick points, and one is to something that Paul had just pointed out. I've been, since I got onto city council, I've been on KEDA, and we've had this conversation a million times. I mean, communities will throw anything they can at economic development. I even joked with Paul years ago that we could come up with the most cockamamie idea, go to a city that doesn't know who we are and pitch it for $50,000, and they'd throw money at us the second we walk in the door with nothing to back it other than a piece of paper that says we'll do it. And that's one of the things that does frustrate me with this, is that they're not willing to commit to anything. So then my follow-up question to that or point is, in the deed grant, they have to meet some criteria to be able to get the deed grant. What happens in the event that we get the deed grant, there has to be some criteria there, and they don't meet the criteria that comes out of the deed grant? How does that follow up? Because they have to get the deed grant, don't they have to hire some additional employees or anything for that?
That's the development agreement we're discussing
Okay.
now. The deed grant between the state and the IFEDA is simply, it's a 50-50 match, and it has to be, the construction and all of that is what's, the pieces, and it has to be in place, and it can, certain project can apply, only apply for those things, but that's what needs to be laid out in the separate development agreement on our side.
Fair enough. And then the second piece that I have is this. We have nothing in place historically as a EDA to do any project like this. We have no policies in place on how to give out the money. And what scares me is, just like what has happened with the city with the multimodal area and anything else, anything we do becomes precedent for the future. So the next manufacturing that comes to town, we legitimately can say, we'll apply for a deed grant and we'll pay 100% to the other cost of whatever needs to happen because you gave us your word. I have an issue with that. And at this point, I can tell you, listening to what Paul had to say and the conversations that I've had with the public works director on, the cost for the city of $80,000 or $90,000 for the possibility to be able to grow that company, I would be for this. But I strongly, strongly believe that after today, we have to come up with policies on how we divvy out EDA funds, because this is not how I want to operate business. I had the same conversation at the last KEDA meeting because we had a gentleman came up and he offered us $200 for some land from the EDA or from KEDA. $200. He showed up at the meeting. We had nothing in writing. We have nothing in writing here. I want to operate the city with a little bit more legitimacy than people just saying, hey, why don't you guys do that? I understand this business, but we need to have a policy in place, just like we came up with a tax abatement policy. People have to fill out a form to be able to get some form of help from the city. We need to do this.
Well, if you remember, Harley, Steve Shimon sat over there and he, when I brought up that I thought we should start using some of our economic development money that's sitting over here is separate from the city budget. Okay, so how long are you going to sit on that? Here's an opportunity to get started. And yeah, maybe we do need a policy. We need policies in a lot of different areas.
Absolutely.
I mean, I could write a list of them.
I think we all could.
I think you could too. And so we need policies. But where do we start? We got to start now. We got to start doing it. We can't sit on it.
I move that we use the economic development funds to fund 50% of this project, with the other 50% coming from the deed grant.
I'll second that. Second by Mike Holden, and discussion. Any more discussion on? And we'll order. What do you got, Betty?
Yeah, I would just like to add, I mean, I couldn't agree more with Paul on the economic development that we need, and they're a great company. They've done a lot on their own. I'm afraid I have to echo what the mayor is saying, that we're going to set a precedent that everybody's going to believe that the city's just going to give and do 100% of whatever they need. No, this isn't a large amount of money. And for this organization, $50,000 up front, we're asking them to do $50,000. Okay. We're agreeing by what we talked about right here in this document that we will refund them that $50,000 as soon as they meet certain criteria. It is 100% paid for. They aren't having to pay for it. So that's where I'm struggling with precedent and having a little bit of skin in the game to say, yes, we're willing to do this. And yep, I mean, I get it. I mean, he is very sincere. They as an organization, they're a great company. They are growing. They're doing the right things. But if we don't tell an organization like this that, you know, we would like to see you put a little bit in up front, help us out, do your expansion within the time frame you're talking about, add a couple employees by the time frame. We already know they have living wages. They're a great organization, but we have to, if we're not going to hold them accountable to any of that little bit of information, we're just, I don't know, throwing money away, hoping that they do the expansion. Because as we've all said, this line does not have to be moved. The city doesn't need to move this line for the line to continue to be functionable. So this would be nearly $200,000 out of your dollars that we wouldn't have had to do. Mind you, we're willing to help, but I think they need to help a little too. And we're gonna, after they reach those goals, we are gonna give it back to them. We said we'd refund them. So it is 100%. And that's where I struggle. And I almost feel like this is a threat too in the one paragraph. It's a little strong, which, you know, got our attention, and we need to, that's what we're here for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Chairman, and I echo all of that, but the problem is you're looking at an EDA that's dealing with hundreds of thousands versus an EDA that's dealing with millions of dollars in the IRRB, and we cannot compete. So this is the one opportunity, and it is, you know me, I'm all about precedent, and I'm all about slippery slopes, and this is both. But I just feel in this instance, I'm trusting Chairman Holden's gut here, and I don't I'm a fact guy. I don't trust guts hardly ever unless it's my own.
My gut,
But
my gut, we all got different guts.
I know. So
My guts-
I'm going with yours on this one.
Okay.
It's
And I
it's
think
against my nature, but I'm going with it.
my
So
gut tells me that this is a win-win.
so let's hope it's a, well, we got to vote first, I guess.
Okay, so any more discussion?
I just, one last thing. Isn't it kind of shocking that we're talking about a $200,000 project and they're not online? They're not here to discuss it? I
agree, but
Or
they gave us their ultimatum. It's right here. That's why they're not here. It's do it or they're moving.
Okay, so we got a motion and we got a second and we've had discussion.
one.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
That must be Counselor Deej.
Well, I didn't know. I thought he wasn't.
This is Counselor Deitch. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I've been listening to the discussion here, and I would have to agree with Counselor Holden on moving forward on this.
Thank you.
I just have one more question. In the event that that we pass this today and we're not going to be doing the work in the middle of winter. I mean, it's going to be a spring project.
Right.
We still have time to find out if they are, I mean, I would hope that if the city makes this choice to try to retain the business, to try to help them grow, and something changes in their pro forma or it changes, that they would let us know so that we are not outing that monies to move this line between now and spring. I would hope that if, you know,
Chairman
I just
Holden, will you be
struggle.
remaining in contact with them, or
Yeah, I've been in contact.
will
and we
somebody
had-
remain in contact
Betty,
with
Betty
them
and
to
I
make sure
had a
that,
verbal when we left. Okay?
sure, well, and just
Right, Betty?
Yeah, and they also, and they talked about it here as well. But
Yeah. So we had a verbal and I felt good about it. And like I say, it's so positive. I don't know how anything else to go with it. I think it's going to be great for International Falls. And like Paul said, there's a lot of good stuff going on in International Falls right now. Huge. I've had people tell me that. That's a plus for the whole city council here. Yeah, maybe there's, people upset about this or that, but overall, they're excited about what's going on with all the improvements in International Falls and things being built. When's the last time we had something built? I came here in 75. And I've watched you can call a slippery slope, whatever you want to say, but nothing has been going on. And all of a sudden, International Falls, and it's a commendation to the city council. They've been there, and we're building tough skin. People want to throw rocks sometimes for some of the silliest stuff, and I don't mind saying that. I could give you examples, but I'm not going to do that. But this is just so positive. I can't. I just can't say it any other way. So we take a vote. Harley,
Yes.
Joe,
aye.
Walt,
Aye.
Leon.
He can't vote.
Can't
Oh,
vote.
yeah, that's right. He can't vote. And I'll vote yes too. And so that's a final. And I think I really do. I'm actually excited that we're pushing forward in economic development because I've been wanting that. And, I didn't grow up here, but I came here as a young fellow at 21, put in close to 40 years for the city. And this excites me. It's a positive moment. And I think you're going to see it down the road. So thank you. Appreciate that. And we'll adjourn the meeting.
No.
No? What do we got left? Oh, wait a minute. We got to do the deed grant, right?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
I would make
Nice
the
job.
motion, I would make the motion to make application for the deed grant for 50% funding of the sewer line relocation project.
I will
Okay,
second that motion.
okay, any discussion? There is none. Take a vote. Harley?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So passes approving the application for deed grant for partial funding of the sewer line relocation project.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
before I realize that this is a special meeting and this doesn't have to be a motion or anything, but can we have it on the next regular EDA agenda to start the process of coming up with a policy to work with EDA funds?
Yeah. And then, you
Just
know,
have it on the agenda so we can discuss and move that
Right.
forward.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. I mean, I only see positives in that too, so
I believe that's the second meeting in January.
Yeah, yeah.
that'd be positive. That's a positive thing. Okay, so we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Appreciate it.